Welcome to another episode of the Eclectic Popcast. On today's episode, we're going to discuss Yellowstone Season 4, in parentheses, so far. We've got a lot to dig into. Let's head into the intro, and we'll be back to discuss it. Thanks for staying tuned through the intro. Allow me to introduce myself. This is Britt from eclecticpop.com, where pop culture gets eclectic. On today's episode, we are going to be discussing Yellowstone Season 4 in detail, so I'm going to go ahead and issue a spoiler alert. So if you're not all caught up on Yellowstone Season 4, that's perfectly okay. Obviously, go ahead and press pause on your video and catch up, and then come back and listen to the rest of what is going to get said. I think it's going to be very interesting. Yellowstone has definitely given us a lot to talk about. I was meaning to make a video after the season 4 premiere, but had so much going on, just didn't get a chance to get to it. And now we have 3 episodes to dissect instead of just 2. So there you go. That's positive. Since I didn't get a chance to get into the season 4 premiere, I guess I will go ahead and kind of go over everything that happened in the season 4 premiere, or not everything, just the Cliff Notes version, okay? Because, that would take me a lot of time, and I'm sorry that I keep saying but I'm still very new at this. Please bear with me. I appreciate your patience. Let's begin with how everything unfolded in terms of the big cliffhanger that season 3 left viewers with for over a year to think about and wonder what the heck was going to happen when they got back. So the first thing was, of course, the Duttons. Almost all of the Duttons were attacked by unknown assailants. We'll just say that. Everyone except for Jamie and Rip, interestingly, were attacked. That I'm going to get back to in just a second, the thing with Rip. John, Beth, and Kayce were all attacked, interestingly in different ways. John was gunned down on the side of the road when he was helping change someone's tire. We don't know what happened to the little boy, which is interesting. I don't know. Maybe that will be a plot point that comes up a little later. Stay tuned. Beth was attacked with a mail bomb, and Kayce was dealt with a bunch of crazy gunmen coming into the livestock commissioner's office trying to kill him. Well, Kayce fought back, of course, and he succeeded, which was great. It was very thrilling. He chased after them. He got them. He did end up getting shot. Yellowstone made us sweat it, wondering if Kayce had survived. He then came out in sniper gear later on from a distance. I thought something really weird was going on. I actually thought what was going on was that the FBI or the feds or somebody had put protection on the Dutton family, and so the person coming in on the suit was not necessarily Kayce. It turned out to be Kayce. As for Beth, she was obviously blown up by a mail bomb. I don't think the poor girl who opened the mail bomb survived. Beth did survive, and she was left with some very intense scars on her back. I think they went only forward in time 2 months after the initial attack, after what they showed with Kayce getting the bad guys. I don't think 2 months is realistic to have had the amount of healing that Beth had, and they didn't even get into everything that she went through. What a burn survivor goes through is absolutely excruciating, horrific. I don't really know why they didn't get into that more. I mean, what Beth would have gone through to have survived that was absolutely horrific. But they instead wanted to focus on John. John survived his injuries. I know that's going to be shocking to everybody because we were all thinking Kevin Costner was going to get killed off of Yellowstone. I'm kidding. No one thought that. I was like thinking that Jon Snow was getting killed off of Game of Thrones. That wasn't going to happen. Or I guess more appropriately about Ned Stark, which actually did happen. So, TV's crazy. Especially after Game of Thrones. So anything's possible, I suppose. But I personally didn't think that was going to happen. I honestly didn't think anyone was going to die. That turned out to be true. John was saved by his cell phone. or maybe not a cell. Beth never said, "Daddy, it was your cell phone that saved you," or anything like that. So we're just speculating. I think people online had speculated about that. I had actually thought the same thing when it aired, because John held his cell phone and was gonna make a call to Rip. Speaking of, Rip was not attacked, but not in a one-on-one assault. We learned that his house that John had gifted him, that was actually Lee's house, got blown up by a bomb. Okay. Meanwhile, also on the ranch, something we didn't see at the end of season 3 was that Monica was attacked on the Dutton property, as was everybody at the bunkhouse. Monica was almost killed by the attacker who broke into the home. Tate, at the last minute, shot and killed the attacker. So Tate is a hero, 100%. Very excited that he was able to save Monica, because I was a little worried there for a moment. Like, oh my goodness, what? Please don't kill off Monica, because she is one of my favorite characters. And let's see, everyone at the bunkhouse made it out okay. They were taking people out who had apparently attacked the ranch. We then, like I said, we move forward in time. We learned that Kayce survived. We learned that Beth has survived her attack. John's survived, obviously. Weirdly, we went through the rest of the first 2 episodes of the season not seeing or hearing from Tate and Monica. They just acted like they never even existed. Very weird. We then got into John trying to make some financial moves, attempting to resurrect the brand, literally and figuratively, by investing in a bunch of horses, which Taylor Sheridan's character of Travis, he came back onto the ranch and he was showing off. We watched horses run and stop very quickly about 1 million times. We also watch them spin around in circles. I watch a lot of the CBC show Heartland. I'm currently making my way through the series. That is a Canadian show that deals with ranch life. If you love Yellowstone, I definitely think you should check it out. It is a very different show than Yellowstone. It's a very tender show. It's a very sweet show. This show is basically, Yellowstone is Heartland's very aggressive, hard-nosed Big Brother show. So that's, I guess, the best way to kind of sum up those things. The first 2 episodes of Yellowstone were not anything that were going to hit you in the feels box at all. And it just feels like, well, I'll get to that in a minute. Suffice it to say, I don't enjoy seeing the horses being forced to stop to such a degree. I love animals. I don't know enough about... I've never seen that on Heartland, where they do this thing where they run and stop a horse on a dime. I have to question about the safety for the horses, and it just doesn't look very safe. Their legs are so sensitive. I don't think it's worth it. To see a horse, really, I don't know. And maybe that's just me being an animal lover, but that's how I feel about it, and I couldn't not say something. So anyway, getting back to the show itself, there were a bunch of backdoor spinoff scenes. So basically setups for the spinoff series that Yellowstone is having. Yellowstone's not finished airing yet, in terms of its run. And they are setting up spinoffs as we speak. December, I believe it's 19th, they're going to start 1883, or Tim McGraw and Faith Hill. That is going to be on Paramount Plus. So if you're watching Yellowstone on Paramount, and you're not going to see it, I'm sorry. That's the way things are going, folks. But the spinoff is going to explain basically the origin of the Dutton family, possibly explain how they amass such a massive amount of land. The backdoor pilot scene, I immediately was like, this is the backdoor pilot scene, here we go. I'm going to get into the spinoffs a little later. Let's move on to some other things. So when Beth was visiting, she met this kid called Carter, who lost his dad to, I believe it was a heroin overdose. Very sad, very tragic. They are touching on something that's happening in our country, which is very sad, and they handled it in a very Yellowstone way. But in the end, Beth ended up bringing Carter, who said his nickname was Chubby, but thankfully he's going by Carter. They brought him to the ranch. Well, Beth, they meaning the police, brought him to the ranch. Beth then took him under her wing, if you will, and brought him home. She cannot have children, as we know from last season, season 3, because she had gotten an abortion as a teenager after she became pregnant by Rip, and Jamie had taken her to the Indian reservation to get an abortion so they could keep the truth from coming out to John. They felt like if they went anywhere else, it was going to come out to him, so he took her there, he meaning Jamie. Turned out that you had to be sterilized in order Kayce to get an abortion. It's not clear if Beth knew that before the abortion or not, but whatever the case, she ended up getting sterilized. We don't understand how this, I personally don't understand how the sterilization took place, how she would not have known that she was getting sterilized. I mean, with her tubes tied, which can be undone. We just don't know what happened, so it's very weird. I obviously don't think they did a mass hysterectomy, because she would have definitely known something was up, and she couldn't exactly go home like we saw in the flashback from having a hysterectomy and just come back home. That's a major surgery. So again, we just don't understand it. I'm hoping for more information on that. Anyway, so she's kind of wanting to be a mom. She brings Carter there, takes him under her wing. Rip is not into the idea at all. Rip is incredibly mean to this kid. We learn this kid suffered SA at the group home he was staying at. He's had a very rough go. Rip is cruel, horrible, toxic to this kid. He immediately puts him to work on the ranch. Now, I'm going to just stay with the storyline and explain what's happened on the most recent episode. Rip has not gotten any nicer to the kid, but Beth decides she's going to try to take Carter out, get him some new duds, get him some new, basically a boots, jacket, and I think a hat. Boy gets to the store, wants to have a cowboy shirt instead, tries to barter with Beth. Beth's like, nope, this is what I agreed to get you. There's no bartering. She has a mom in the store go nuts, videotaping her. Beth breaks her phone. Beth then grabs the boy by the ear, tries to bring him out of the store. She then leaves him, says that she wasn't cut out for motherhood. I'm not gonna say either way on that. She gets into a car, boy chases after her, boy being Carter, and he's like, I really messed up, and he goes back home empty-handed. Beth basically tells Rip that he was right. She had disagreed with him because he wanted Carter to basically sit there from sunup to sundown, working indefatigably, and he felt like she was making the boy out to be a pet, which it's called being a parent, but not being a parent, but taking care of a kid. Being a pet, that was just so Rip. We'll get to Rip in just a minute, but anyway, at the end of the night, Beth decides that after what happened in the store, the boy's gonna now not sleep in the house anymore. He's not gonna break bread with them anymore, I guess, and he's gonna go out and be basically just working on the land. And so that's all over. She then tells Rip that he's gonna resent her for not being able to have a child. He assures her that that won't happen. I honestly really believe that. I don't think Rip cares about having a family. I don't think he likes kids. It's just my feeling. And that's kind of the end of that storyline. Rip was really hard on everybody, and he was hard on this kid. He has been so out of character since season 4 began. He was rude to Lloyd, who was basically like a father figure, besides John Dutton, like a second father figure to Rip, a second dad. He was very rude to Lloyd, and I didn't think Lloyd had said anything that was that terrible. He's upset about Walker. He feels emasculated by Walker. He was lamenting that to Rip, and Rip was like, be quiet. I'm not going to say what he said because he spoke a little too much French. It just really is this toxic mindset of too tough of love. I do agree with not being too soft, but this is way too hard. I think the show Heartland has a very... They have a character on there who is about tough love, but it's not to the degree where it's toxic, like what I think Rip and John are doing, which is just really terrible. Let's see. We did not hear or see Jamie this week. Jamie's dad. Jamie bought a property, which was not for the Yellowstone, he told them, and his dad was on the property. I guess he's thinking he's going to be moving in. I don't know what this old guy is thinking. We learned from Mo and Chief Rainwater that they had found Mo had found a guy at the casino who was going to reveal who was behind the hit on the Duttons. He basically said the militia was hired to do it, or he put people together. In this week's episode, John killed that guy without getting any further information. But Chief Rainwater and Mo handed that guy over to John to deal with. What else happened with John? He went and bathed in springs of water, hot water spring to heal. Not sure that's entirely sanitary, but I doubt he'll care about anything sanitation-wise. Kayce continues to be the nicest person on the show. Everyone else around him keeps getting much, much worse. Oh, speaking of people getting worse, that kind of brings us to this week's episode. Outside of the Dutton family, Jimmy in the premiere, John told him that he was going to be going down to Texas to be made into a man. Finger quotes. I think I just said man, you know what I mean. Anyway, Jimmy had survived. I think I blew through everyone else. I was talking about the Dutton surviving everything. Well, Jimmy also survived. And his spinoff is getting set up as well. Yes, Jimmy's getting his own spinoff. And the 36s, or is it the 46s? I think if it was the 36s, we'd be more worried about Jimmy right now. John is going to send Jimmy to go become a man. He sent him down to Texas with Taylor Sheridan's character, Travis, who is a horrible, horrible Travis, not Taylor Sheridan. The character he's written for himself. He's a really horrible, horrible, horrible guy, awful person, terrible. Did I mention he's a terrible person? He ended up being hard on Jimmy. He acted like having a neck brace was something that was just Jimmy, being weak, being pathetic, instead of being a guy with a health issue who needs that. So he made him just throw that in the trunk, and he was like, we're going down to Texas, so we're not going to see Jimmy anymore, but Jimmy did survive. Meanwhile, the reason that Jimmy ended up almost dying, his girlfriend, his first girlfriend, Mia, who had berated Jimmy and she attempted to emasculate Jimmy for not wanting to get up back and be bronc riding after he had almost broken his neck. She was like, the man that I love would get up on a horse and he would get his neck broken and he wouldn't whine about it. That's the man I want. So then Jimmy goes and gets his, she gets what she wants. She wants a medal for staying by Jimmy, even though she's the reason that he was sick to begin with. So she cries because Jimmy's leaving to go to Texas. She's not going to follow him down there. I don't even know why she and her friend are still at the ranch. If there's going to be a girl on the ranch, just let it be Teeter and let's be done. The Mia and her groupie friend, this is nothing against the actresses. I think they're great. I enjoyed their characters when they first came on. Bunkhouse makes no sense to me whatsoever. It breaks the realism they've tried to have. Speaking of realism, let me circle back for a moment. Josh Holloway's character, who was a breath of absolute glorious fresh air last season, he was killed in the season premiere. He's the only person who died, folks. And he died at Rip's hands. Rip threw a rattlesnake at his face and killed him. We have no earthly idea he was killed by Rip, other than you don't have any evidence that he was behind the attacks on the Duttons, anything about that. But he just decides that he's going to kill the guy. Awful death. And Jackie Weaver has now come in as the head of I guess it's a hedge fund, right? That's trying to take over the Dutton Ranch. She's now going to be, there's a interesting teaser with her telling Beth to basically giddy up because she's here and she's not going to back down. So now Beth, by the way, Beth had a rough falling out with her boss, so she's not working for her boss anymore, and he apparently tried to cheat her, for lack of a better word, out of what she was owed, so she wasn't happy about that. Beth is she threatened Jamie's life in the premiere. I don't know what's going to happen with that. Obviously, I haven't seen, none of us do. But Jamie being threatened by Beth it's really weird. She basically chased him around his desk in his office and threatened his life. There's a preview where Kayce was kind of like, we can't let Beth keep doing this. And John's like, no. classic, not going to take a hard stand on it because he doesn't care about Jamie at all. I'm sorry, I don't buy it. He doesn't love his son at all. He treated Jamie horribly. Jamie's situation, by the way, we still have no update on his baby, which I don't know about you, but I really want to know about this baby. I'm really concerned about Jamie Jr. We just don't know anything about him. That's another plot line I'd like to spend more time on than Travis and whatever he's doing. So let me just say, season 4 so far just seems so it doesn't seem like the same show. That's what I'm going to say. It doesn't feel like the same show. Maybe it's because I spent an entire year watching, not entire year, I've been watching it the whole year, but I've been watching it for quite a while. Not Yellowstone. Heartland. And maybe it's made me a big softie, I don't know. But this show has gotten so hard. And this week we had, for instance, Kayce and Monica seem like they're heading towards Splitsville. I really hope they're not. Kayce pulled Tate out from under the bed. We did learn in it's not the second episode. It's actually the third episode of the season, but it was the second episode it was the first episode after the premiere. Let's put it that way. We learned that he was really struggling mentally. Kayce pulled him out from under the bed. He's like, eat your dinner like a human being. Monica yelled at him. She was hating what the ranch is doing to them. She hates everything about it. I think she's just kind of dealing with all the trauma of everything. I don't blame her for being upset. I mean, she was nearly killed. Her son had to kill a guy to defend her. Honestly, that can happen no matter. I know she wants to believe that is not going to happen except at the Dutton Ranch, but that could have happened elsewhere. It's just a sad fact of life. There are bad people out there. Obviously, her husband has a target around his back. But the minute that she had a baby with Kayce, that was going to be the case. Because people are going to come after John Dutton and they're going to come after his son. And there's just no way around it. Tate was a target from the moment he was born. That's just it's awful, but it is the situation. I want to see more Monica in the next episode. I want to see more Jamie, for goodness sakes. I mean, why this character comes and goes from the narrative, I really don't understand, because he is someone it creates a lot of drama. I feel like Rip is incredibly out of character this year. I have no idea why he's not involved in getting revenge on the Duttons. I thought that was something we heard get teased. I do not know where we heard that tease. Maybe it was from Cole Hauser. I do not know. I'll try to look around and see if I can find something. And if I do, I'll link to it in the description box down below. But Rip is he's just being rude to everybody. I always thought he was tough. I always knew that Rip was gruff and tough, but he just seems mean this year. Just mean. He was so mean to the boy. The kid's behavior in the store was really disappointing. I was hoping they were going to go and give us a storyline very similar to something that happened on Heartland, very heartwarming, good, feel-good storyline. Finally, something feel-good. I felt like we used to have that on Yellowstone, now not so much. But they were like, that's too happy, let's move it away from that, so let's just ruin it, so they did. But Rip has just been so mean. He was mean to Lloyd, he's mean to the kid. He was nicer to Jimmy. He empathized with him. He did say that he didn't want him to have to go, but it's John's choice, and he does whatever John says, so. Anyway, I did think it was weird that he wasn't getting revenge on anybody. If him getting a rattlesnake on Josh Holloway's character was Rourke, that's it. Rourke was getting revenge. That don't work for me. I don't know that he did that, so this was just... without showing me hard evidence, we've seen him kill in defense of the family, but him just showing up and killing Rourke, that was just straight up murder. So it left a very nasty taste in my mouth. And maybe that's what their point. They're trying to tell you guys, the family you thought was kind of gray, they're just really bad, horrible, horrible people. And maybe that's the truth. Maybe that's what the whole point of the show is, and I got sidetracked thinking, wow, this is a show about, we don't see a show like this on TV every day. Show about a ranch life, until I watch Heartland. But you don't have a show where you've got tough cowboys, you've got these kind of characters on TV right now. These are just not popular characters. This is from a TV of old. I thought and apparently the whole point of the show is just basically to kind of run those characters through and say they're no count. I guess. Why else write them like this where they're so unlikable this season? Let's see, what else do I have here in my notes? Well, I do have to say, killing off Josh Holloway's character Bort was incredibly disappointed. It just shows me, I know I'm going to say short-sighted, but it's so disappointing. It's like when you watch Game of Thrones. I know, I keep mentioning Game of Thrones. I'm going to mention it because the shows have a lot in common. I've read the cast talk about Game of Thrones. I know there's connectivity there. I know that they kind of see it that way. Cole Hauser posted stuff. Wes Bentley mentioned something in an article. So it's not, and I think Taylor Sheridan even mentioned Game of Thrones at one point. So I'm not mentioning something that the creative powers that be aren't also seeing and feeling making this show. Obviously, I'm a big Game of Thrones fan. So yeah, I mean, I'm gonna be really into that angle because yeah, I love Game of Thrones. I'm not sorry either. I went to the Game of Thrones concert. I have Game of Thrones t-shirts that I wear all the time. I love Game of Thrones. I'm not sorry. Sorry, not sorry. I'm not sorry. But this season, obviously I can tell you that there are seasons of Game of Thrones that are better than others, and season 8 of Game of Thrones was a low point. And season 4 of Yellowstone for me right now feels like Game of Thrones season 8. It's just, that's not a compliment. I'm just going to say that right there. It just feels like also the show is waiting around, not waiting around, but waiting around in the story. It's just, there's so much things that should be able to be told, and we only get 10 episodes a year. Fans had to wait an extra long time this year. Normally the show comes back in July. Had to wait till November, and on the heels of a huge cliffhanger, which, yeah, I know, everyone was going to survive, but, still, I kind of wanted to have that confirmed. And that's a lot of weight, and then to come back with this, I will say this latest episode was better than the premiere. I'm not, again, trying to diss on the show in any way. I've enjoyed the show immensely. It has been the number one show, I think, on Eclectic Pop has been the number one show for the past 3 years in terms of my critical opinion. But this year, this year that's gonna be a very tough nod to give, because when I say this is the best show of the year, that show has to be, I don't know if you watch a lot of figure skating or not, but I do. That's besides movies and TV, outside of entertainment, that's my favorite thing to follow. That is what I follow. That's my big hobby. And not that I perform it, I watch it. I wanted to, if I was in another universe, if I wasn't doing what I'm doing now, I would have wanted to have been a figure skater when I grow up. That's another long story. I'm sure you don't want to hear about that. You want to hear about Yellowstone. And I totally don't disagree with that. I'm a very boring character. But what I'm saying, the reason I'm bringing up figure skating is you watch figure skating and you're literally holding your breath because you're seeing someone, you're wanting them to give a flawless performance. Even just turning on the blade and having a wobble, that's to be a grade of execution. So when I watch a TV show, when I'm seeing those episodes of the show, the whole season, that for me is every element that you see in a figure skating program. So each episode, so if there's a bad episode, that's a fall. That's not going to be high grade of execution. The best show when I have said this is the best show of the year on Eclectic Pop, that means that this show has been pretty much flawless. It has been incomparable. It's been flawless. We're 3 episodes into season 4. There are 10 episodes total. It's not been a flawless run. If these were the horses, imagine them, see on Heartland, I keep mentioning it a lot, but on Heartland they have shown I can't think of what it is right now, but the horses when they jump over, I'm sorry, I'm completely blanking. Basically the horses go through an obstacle course and they do these jumps. There are these bars that are across the jumps. If their leg hits that, it causes it to fall down. That's going to get the person competing on the horse a fault, or the horse a fault. So far, the first 3 episodes, imagine that is the obstacle course for the horses. There has been a fault on each of those jumps. So I say this with love in my heart. I know this show has been better. I kind of hesitated to even say anything because I don't want to be the person who's like bashing the show. I didn't even want to talk about it publicly and say anything negative about the show because I want to be positive, and I don't say things about shows negative willy-nilly or anything like that. This is just where I'm at now, and I have to say something because I want the show to be great, and it's been better than this. I think one of the big things hurting it is Rip was such a great character, and him and Beth were a couple worth rooting for. Kayce and Monica are a couple worth rooting for. I hate to say I still like Kayce and Monica as characters and together as much as I did last season. We've just barely seen them. That's been frustrating. But Beth and Rip they're not in a good place. I like Rip a lot less. I know this is very unpopular to say. I'm sorry. I know you're going to come for me. I know anyone hearing this is going to come for me. I'm sorry. I have to speak my truth. Rip will want you to tell it like it is. I'm going to tell it like it is. Rip is not acting in a way that is making me like him as much as I did the first 3 seasons. Beth honestly is more likable right now than Rip, which is frightening to say. I'm hoping they can do something with the storyline with the kid. I know Rip said this week, which is really upsetting. He said, "This boy will never be our son. He can be a lot of things, but he'll never be that." And I thought, wow, okay. Gosh, someone call up the Grinch. I mean, Rip's heart is shrinking at such a rate. It's like, itty bitty. Why did he have to say that? Does this mean that he never wanted to adopt a kid, period? It was just this specific kid he doesn't have any empathy for whatsoever, knowing what he went through in the group home? Golly. I mean, you can't find a little bit of empathy? And I know this thing where you don't deserve it. You don't deserve it. Yeah, I agree. Entitlement, I'm not for it, but he definitely deserves to not have bad things happen to him in a group home. I mean, is that what Rip was saying? I was very confused by what he was trying to articulate there. Anyway, man, I'm getting more upset, so I think I should just stop here. Is there anything that I forgot? I hope not. We haven't seen the governor yet. We miss her. She's John's girlfriend, and she didn't even stop by with like a bouquet of flowers telling him to get well soon. She didn't even get him a teddy bear. That's very disappointing. I don't know what's going on there, but hopefully the next episode will get better. Sometimes these things take time to heat up. There have been few shows where it's been flawless the whole time through. Bates Motel, that's a show that's been flawless the whole way through. Game of Thrones, up until season 7. That was a flawless show almost. I love that show, but no, it's hard to do something where it's perfect from beginning to end. I get that. I just feel like with the spinoffs, that's something I will kind of leave off here with. Having 2 spinoffs, and maybe more at this point, I don't know, I've lost count. When you start doing spinoffs, and I'm going to mention a show or a franchise that I don't know if you've watched it or not. It's a totally different franchise than Yellowstone. But the Arrowverse on the CW, they started doing all these spinoffs. They had the show Arrow, it was really popular. Then they were, let's do spinoffs. And with that, you can do so many spinoffs because you've got so many superheroes. That makes sense, right? But Smallville, which was a much better I enjoyed that show a lot more than Arrow. I'm sorry to everyone at Arrow, but it's just my cup of tea, okay? I grew up with Smallville. Smallville was an excellent show. It did maintain its high quality for as long as it did because it did not get busy with spinoffs, okay? It just didn't. They tried to make one happen back in the day with the Green Arrow, interestingly. Didn't work out. Refocus, keep going with what we have there with Smallville, Clark Kent, Lois Lane, big characters. When a show starts to splinter its focus, it just is going to hurt the creative integrity of the initial show, the OG. And that's just the facts. I'm just saying the facts right here. Right now, just seeing this in a microscopic. In fact, I'm not even going to say it. So I'm just going to leave it there. I'm going to leave it there, okay? But hopefully the show will get better. I have faith. Obviously, this is a very talented writer. He's done a lot of great movies. I hope the spinoffs are good. I really do. I don't wish any ill will upon the franchise. I really don't. I just hope Britt can be someone that we can all like again, and Monica gets more screen time, and Jamie, and we have Kayce and Monica work things out. They're such a good young couple. I just hate not having them together. I think there's a lot of room. I thought Monica too was growing after last season in terms of understanding that, well, it's not ideal. Sometimes things have to be done to protect your family, and this year she's seems to really be, and I get that, hey, she's fresh off of trauma. Maybe they will introduce a therapist. I definitely think many of the characters on this show would benefit from a therapist. I know that Rip's not going to want to hear that, but that's my honest opinion. And maybe Monica can talk to a therapist. They can work through some of these things and have an honest conversation instead of just shutting each other out. It's just heartbreaking to hear Monica say that she hates Kayce, because I don't think Kayce would ever say that to Monica. It's frightening when you're in a relationship where one person can say they hate the other person. That kind of, it doesn't bode well for the relationship, and those being partners, because a partnership is equal. It's 50-50 or 100-100, but it can't be I hate you, you always love me kind of situation. Just some thoughts there. They are a young couple. Maybe they will, look at me, I'm 31, and I'm just saying they're a young couple. They'll work it out, but they're young. They'll work it out, hopefully, with time. It's early in their marriage. Hopefully they're going to have many, many more years together. Hopefully they're going to be able to be at the Dutton Ranch. I don't know. That's obviously what John was hoping for, but I have a feeling things are not going to work out that way. Or if Kayce stays there, it will just be with Kayce by himself. I don't see him moving on and finding someone else, nor do I want that. I really like their coupling, so hopefully things will work out. We'll see if, I'm not going to make promises about another video about Yellowstone. Hopefully we'll just keep our fingers crossed, and if there is one that happens, it will show up in your feed. If you feel so inclined, please hit the like or subscribe button, and or both. I would really appreciate it. I'm trying to grow Eclectic Pop. It's a YouTube presence, trying to get the Eclectic Popcast off the ground. It's a great way that we can get things growing and going, so I really appreciate it. Until next time, keep thinking about Yellowstone, and be sure to leave a comment about what you think about the latest episodes. I'll look forward to seeing what you have to say. Until next time, see you later.